George Augustus, also called Marx and Duke of Cambridge, was born November 10 in 1683 in Herrenhausen Palace. He died October 25, 1760 in London. George Augustus was the only son of the German prince George Louis and Sophia Dorotha of Cilli. George II was the last British monarch to lead troops into battle. While this period of time, many great social and political changes occurred during his regime. George's regime was threatened in 1745 when Charles Edward Stuart, the young pretender, landed in Scotland after some initial success, which led to the national anthem in the current from becoming popular among the Hanoverian loyalists. Charles was defeated at the Battle of Culloden in April 1746.
Major art movements and artists. During this period, there was the Baroque era. The music of the Baroque era derived from the Portuguese barroco, or oddly shaped pearl. The term Baroque has been widely used since the 19th century to describe the period in Western European art music from about 1600s to 1750s. Baroque, in form of music, there is a famous song called Gloria from the Mass in B minor by Johann Sebastian Bach. Many of the well-known personalities from the first part of the Baroque period hail from Italy, including Monteverdi, Corelli, and Vivaldi. By the mid-18th century, our focus shifted to the German composers Bach and Handel. The work that distinguishes the Baroque period is stylistically complex, even contradictory. In general, however, the desire to evoke emotional states by appealing to the senses, often in dramatic ways, underlies its manifestations. Some of the qualities more frequently associated with the Baroque are grandeur, sensuous richness, drama, vitality, movement, tension, emotional exuberance, and a tendency to blur distinctions between the various arts. Another arts tendency was the Rococo art period from 1725 to 1780. This is described like light and airy, a French fancy. The paintings from the Rococo art era are typical of the French aristocracy of the time. The name stems from the French word rocaille, which means shellwork. The solid forms that characterized the Baroque period were softened into light, air, and desire. Paintings of this era were no longer strong and powerful, but light and playful. The colors were lighter and brighter, almost transparent in some instances. Many pieces of this art from this period neglected religious themes, although some artists like Tiepolo did create frescoes in many churches.
Social and political changes. During the first 2 decades of the reign, George II closely followed foreign and domestic developments. He supported Walpole's policy of peace and retrenchment and allowed the minister to use crown patronage to build up his majority in the parliament. In 1733, George II's German allies were able to persuade Walpole to make many important decisions, such as preventing Britain from joining the War of Polish Succession in aid of Hanover's German allies. In other respects, George II was vigilant and active in foreign affairs. His concerns for Europeans, and particularly Germans, affairs had wide-ranging consequences, including in matters of religion. The most significant crisis of the early part of George II's reign was the excise crisis of 1733. It was becoming increasingly obvious to Walpole that smuggling was reducing the income of revenue from imports. In January 1733, the government even discussed the use of troops to suppress smugglers. George died suddenly and was succeeded by his grandson, son of Frederick Louis, King George III. George II's accession brought a period of insecurity for Walpole. While he had developed a good relationship with the new queen, Caroline of Anspach, he was not fond of the new king and feared that he would be replaced.
Inventions or science breakthroughs. The early years of the society saw revolutionary advancements in the conduct and communication of science. In 1665 alone, Hooke's Micrographia and the first issue of Philosophical Transactions were published. Philosophical Transaction, which established the important concept of scientific priority and peer review, is now the oldest continuously published science journal in the world. Hydrogen was discovered from 1731 to 1810 by a scientist named Henry Cavendish. The greatest breakthrough in science through these years was the discovery of the laws of motion and illumination of gravity. This discovery was made by scientist, mathematician, astronomer, natural philosopher, alchemist, and theologian Isaac Newton from 1643 to 1727. Fun facts. In October 1727, a second Hanoverian king was crowned at Westminster Abbey, George II. George II was the last British monarch born outside Britain. He was born in Germany. As a child, he lived in Germany. He spoke only French until he was 4. Then he learned German and later English and Italian. George II led his troops against France in the Battle of Dettingen in June 1743. This was the last time a British king led his troop into battle. George II married Caroline and Ansbach in 1705 after visiting Ansbach in disguise to inspect her. His son Frederick died, according to some resources, after being hit by a cricket or tennis ball. He was succeeded by his grandson George III. When he died, he was buried next to his wife Caroline, and the coffin sides between them were removed to let their remains mingle.
I now pronounce you king.
I am King George II.
I now declare you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride.